Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt,
And I'm Sam.
and it feels like this is like kind of like our first official back episode because we're talking about Dark again.
It feels like we're back.
Forgive me if my stomach's growling. I just ate. I'm full, but you know, like when your stomach still makes noise, you're like, "What's going on?"
Yeah,
So, yeah.
you gotta get that checked out, bro.
Hey, I'm okay. All right.
Are you?
Future Matt has to worry about that as he edits this. I went to Little Caesars and I got the stuffed crust pizza.
Heck yeah.
Sam,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what this was. I knew this crust was full of cheese, but it's like they cooked the pizza differently.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like it feels like lighter, a little more airy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And I guess they put a bunch of Parmesan on it, which
Yeah.
I guess they don't do that for. I never noticed it, but I guess they don't do that for their other pizzas.
Nope.
Because I noticed it this time. I opened the box and it was covered in like this white powder, and I'm like, okay, it's either cocaine, Anthrax,
Mm-hmm.
or Parmesan.
Yeah, yeah.
So statistically, I have a 2 in 3 chance that I'm gonna have a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
So far so good.
I don't know, your stomach's rumbling. Could be the anthrax.
Oh God, yeah, I know, man. We joke about that now, but we grew up in the Anthrax days when we were nervous about that, man.
There was like I remember one time while that was going on, I did grab the mail and there was some like dirt or something on there,
Mhm.
but it looked white.
Yeah.
And mom like freaked out and she was like, "No, throw that down," and then
Oh,
like looked at
crap.
my hands and like, no, like it wasn't anthrax. Like
Yeah.
I think the mail guy just like dropped our mail and then put it back in. But
Yeah. Dude, like
it's
we were
amazing.
so paranoid back then, But I mean,
Mhm.
like rightly so. Like people were dying from it,
Yeah, yeah.
I remember like I would try and get home from school as soon as possible because I wanted to be the one to check the mailbox. Like I didn't want it to like blow up on mom or dad. So I wanted to be the first one. So I would go and like kind of at an arm's length. I'm like, this isn't gonna do anything for me, but it's better than nothing. I would like open the mailbox just to see, just to
Mhm.
make sure.
It'll take out your arm.
Well,
That's
it's one of those things, man. If even a little bit will kill you.
Oh, I was joking,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I mean, that's such an interesting thing though that like I feel like only like kids think in situations like that. It's like, no, I'm gonna get home first so I can check the mail. I don't want anything to happen to mom and dad. Like
Yeah.
it's such a weird like mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as a parent, you should be thinking the same thing. So it's so weird.
Hmm.
Like it's like survival instincts kick in.
Yeah.
Even though mom or dad is the one driving me.
Hmm.
Even if mom or dad had been home all day, it's like, no, I gotta be the first one to open the mailbox.
Yeah.
I remember one of my flights, I was either coming home from New York or I was flying out to New York. And I was flying JetBlue, man, and I love JetBlue. I don't know how they are recently, but
Mm.
I had all my leg space and I was comfy and I was sitting on an aisle seat, and we're like halfway through the flight, and then I just kind of feel like this itch on my left arm, the side of the aisle, and I look, and my arm's resting on the seat, right, or the little seat rest,
Hmm.
and in a perfect line is it's like a 2 maybe 3 inch line of white powder, and I was like, oh as soon as I saw it, boom, I slapped it off. And like in that split second I'm thinking, what the hell is this? How did it get there? Did it fall from above? Because people, like someone had just like pulled their bag out of the luggage or whatever. I'm like,
Oh
did it fall
yeah.
on me for above? But it was a perfect line, like, and that's what I don't understand. The
Mm.
second I knocked it off, like I got this splitting headache, and like everything went red. I called it a red out because I didn't black out. Everything just turned like red, and I just like put my heads down, my heads. I put my head down and I kind of just like cradled my head a little bit, held my temples, and like without opening my eyes, I felt for the stewardess switch and I hit it. And she came and like, she's like, really bitchy attitude. She's like, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "Can I just get a glass of water?" She's like, uh after in 45 minutes or whatever, whenever I don't know, turbulence passes or whenever a certain altitude, something like that. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. And I just kept doing that. And I guess I fell asleep or something like that. Cause the next thing I remember, she's tapping me on the arm and she's giving me the cup of water. I'm like, thank you. That was it. As soon as I woke up, I was fine. No
Oh
headache,
wow,
nothing. I'm like, what the hell was that?
that's weird.
Dude, like
That's
to
wild.
this day, I don't know what that was. I'm like, someone is testing out anthrax on this plane or like a
Oh my
strain.
god.
Like, there's so many shady things about that story. Like, and the
Yeah.
like kind of the one that baffles me the most is how did it get in such a perfect, it's like perfect cocaine snorting line, you know? Not that I've done it, but I've seen it in movies. Like,
Hmm.
you don't spill something like that, you know?
Yeah.
If it fell from above, it wouldn't have been that perfect. So like I have no idea. Like to this day, I don't know. I think it was some kind of test, you know? I read the Cobra event in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man,
Yeah.
which is all about pandemics and quarantine and diseases that like you can't stop. Yeah, it's crazy. So I was
Hmm.
thinking like, dude, they were trying to unleash this on a plane or they were testing it on a plane to see, you know, will this take down a whole plane? You know? Nope. I got
Nope.
them
Just
good Mex Tech. I got those good Tex Mex jeans, man.
mhm. It just took out some random college student for 45 minutes and then you were fine.
Right? Like I don't know what it would have been. Was it like if that was the case? Was I just randomly chosen? Was it because I was a brown guy in
Mm.
post 9/11 years?
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Like
not good.
there's so many things like during those that's the span of those few years, like that were crazy, you know, and especially as a teenager, you don't really know what's going on because you see the news, but you know, I'm already in that punk rock phase, so I don't trust the news anyway. And I never actually left that phase now that I think about it. But then, like, parents and adults aren't really telling you the full truth because they're trying to protect you and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was just, it was a time of fear and like, it was just nuts, man. Because I remember, like, what was that? I guess 2002 was when we went to Iraq,
Hmm.
and all everyone, especially the guys, were talking about it. Like, are we gonna get drafted? Are we gonna get drafted? And luckily, man, there's good old Coach Williams. He's like, "No, man, nah, I'm not gonna get drafted. These got to be really bad before that happens." I was like, "Okay, Coach, I'm trusted you." But it was just like this whole air and atmosphere of fear and uh, yeah, it was nuts.
Hmm.
So I don't know what happened on that plane, but I like to think the terrorists lost that day. Terrorist zero, Matt one.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I mean, even if you could give me a good excuse or a good like alternative, like what happened, it's like it wasn't natural. You know, how could that naturally happen?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, that's my Anthrax story. um
Wow. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the
yeah.
show.
It could, I don't know, maybe it was cocaine. Who knows? Someone decided to do it off my arm and they forgot. I don't
Oof.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. What I do got to talk about though, before we get into the show, another edition of Matt's Man Watch. This past Saturday, I finally, I've been saying it for months, like half a year at least, finally sat down and watched Michael Mann's The Keep. I told Sam, I don't know if I want to give this movie 4 stars or two, maybe even
That
one.
that's wow, that's pretty drastic.
Dude,
That is
it's bad. Like stylistically, it's great. I loved
Mhm.
it. It's so just oozing with Michael Mann style. Essentially, it's set during World War II. It takes place in the mountains in Romania. A bunch of German soldiers, a bunch of Nazis have to like look after this keep,
Mhm.
and because they're greedy, something happens, and something wakes up,
Mhm.
and it starts killing them off one by one. So like the
Mhm.
first 40 minutes to an hour, like it's pretty solid. Like they're assembling people from all over, like or like people characters are coming in from all different places you don't know where, because they're trying to figure out what's in this keep. What is this?
Mm.
There's all these mysteries. uh and it's really rad. It's like, to describe it, kind of sounds like a horror movie. Oh, something's picking off these Nazis, but it kind of feels more of like an adventure, like just the vibe and style. Very dark, very wet. Uh, I don't. I'm assuming this was a set they built. They built. I don't know where, because the location is gorgeous. It might actually be in the mountains of Romania. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but then like the musical score is, of course, it's Michael Mann, so it's done by Tangerine Dream.
Yeah.
And it's so weird seeing this film, this pseudo horror adventure fantasy film that takes place during World War II,
Mhm.
have heavy synthesizers. It just feels very 80s. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm loving this. I'm loving this so much. But yeah, man, I think it was a lot of style over substance. And then Paramount Studios really butchered it.
Mm.
Apparently, Michael Mann made a 3.5 hour film. Paramount forced him to cut it down to two. And then after
Dang.
bad test reviews, they cut it down even further to an hour and a half.
Jeez.
And you feel it. Like I said, man, the first 45 minutes, like it's solid, but then you start seeing like, oh, dude, we're missing a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Gabriel Byrne plays the evil Nazi commander, and I'm like, dude,
Ooh.
like he rocks in that role, man. Like, it's not a role, like you think someone would want, but you could tell like it's that villain, that mustache trolling Nazi. It's like he
Mhm.
just soaks it up. And then there's a lot of other actors I don't know. I think everyone did pretty good, but Ian McKellen plays the
Ooh.
Jewish mythology professor who's studying the keep, and his whole story is crazy. I don't want to give too much away, because there definitely are twists, and I was really excited as I started figuring out the plot. I'm like, why has this movie not been remade?
Mhm.
But then, of course, it just goes all nuts and it sucks. And apparently, the I guess the main special effects guy, he died like either during production or right at the end.
Oh,
So
dang.
no one knew how to finish his visual effects. So the editing's really weird. They had to that was also part of the reason they had to cut a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, it's nuts. Oh, and then Scott Glenn's in it. Yeah, you know.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I kind of recommend it just so you can experience it. It's
Okay.
really weird. I kind of see it kind of a while back we were talking about like going back and watching like classic fantasy like films of
Yeah.
the era. This isn't it, but it kind of has that same vibe going into it. Almost
Mhm.
like a modern day fantasy. And by modern day I mean World War II.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, go check it out. I'm curious what everyone thinks about it. I did listen to Tarantino's review about it. He did like a 30-minute podcast about it, and he just ripped it a new one.
Dang.
But the thing is, like, I couldn't really debate any of his points, because it's like, yeah, I see what you're saying. But what
Mhm.
I did find out is this kind of made Michael Mann leave film for a while, and that's where he ends up going and start developing Miami Vice.
Mm.
So and speaking of which, because Miami Vice, that was like a huge cultural staple. Like that kind
Yeah.
of changed things. So it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see that progression. And this was definitely before Last of the Mohicans and Heat and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah. I want to remake it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, dude. Um, yeah. Anything else? Anything we've got to catch up on or you need to discuss before we jump into the dark?
Well, this time next week, we will officially be in a world that has a third season of Dimension 20's Fantasy High.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
they're back. They're back in about 24 hours. They'll be back with Fantasy High Junior Year.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. Dude, it's kind of crazy. Obviously, we're not sponsored by Dropout or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we would like to be.
Mm-hmm. Sponsor our D&D
But
show, guys.
yeah, yeah, put our D&D show in there. Uh it's kind of crazy because kind of seeing more and more people in I don't know, the real world talk about Dropout.
Mm-hmm.
Um one of our new coworkers, like they watched Dimension 20 and I'm like, whoa, it's been like 3 years and the only other person I've talked to this about is you, my brother,
Yeah.
you know? And so like the whole brand new person that I don't have to like talk to them about or talk them into it or anything like that. Like, nope, they're already doing them. Like, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Kat just told me that she was overhearing a coworker talking to another coworker about Dropout. And so she like poked her head and be like, are y'all talking about Dropout? And they're like, yeah, we are. Like, whoa. It's like that, like it's so crazy, man.
I think a big part of it is because it's its own thing now. It's not owned by College Humor anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
agree.
I think it's really it's getting out there more, but I think College Humor always had a big reach, but it was always like a certain thing. I think
Hmm.
College Humor was always associated with like those early kind of YouTube day stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So and a lot of people just weren't really into that, you know? And it's like, all right, well, oh well. So because of that, they kind of like they missed all of, what is now Dropout TV,
Hmm.
or what became it eventually.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man. Awesome. I love it. And it sounds like a lot more people, more coworkers sound like they're listening to Critical Role. At least I
Hmm.
assume because they're showing up with Critical Role clothes. I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
you really are a
yeah.
bunch of nerds.
We
We didn't even
really
know
are. And
it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it was crazy too, because like I told Kat that and she's just like, well, we already know that they play D&D. I'm like, yeah, but it's different, you know?
It's different once you know what they watch.
Yeah, yeah.
And they like it enough to buy the merch.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, like now we know. Now we know what kind of nerds are surrounding us.
Yeah.
And I love it.
We need to get a D&D, a store game going.
A store dude, I know.
So, not to, protrude, no, prolong our intro.
Hmm.
Uh, why don't you talk to the audience a little bit about the discussion y'all were having at work today? Because
Oh
I'm
my
I'm just so fascinated by the results of this.
Yeah, yeah. Just so my coworker came up to me and was just like, you were stuck in a fantasy world and you were like a professional, like you're the best at what you do. What kind of weapon would you have? And so I'm just like trying to do my job and I fully stop. I'm like, I think about this question every single day. I am always thinking about this question. My answers change so much, like so many times through the years. But yeah, so that was kind of like the store question today. We were just asking each other, like, "Hey, what would your weapon be? Like, what kind of weapon do you got and all this stuff?" And I said, I settled on an axe and shield combo.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, no, like that feels like a good I can do tactics, I can maneuver, I can do all this stuff. That coworker said that they do like a two blades, sort of situation. They specifically referenced Zuko's swords, twin swords from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And she also said they can connect right into one,
Yeah.
like a
Well, yeah,
double
they can.
blade.
Yeah. Well, no, not like a double blade. They can combine, so it's like one sword.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you can wield it as one, or you can split it apart and it becomes two.
Yeah, because I
Um,
know in D&D they have the one you have two swords that'll connect, and it's kind of like a long double bladed
yeah.
sword, almost
She,
Darth Maul style, you know.
she did mention that too. She like, or like I would like to have that, like a Darth Maul kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, so just finding it was really interesting because I know like we've posited this question off the pod, like what would everybody's classes be? What would
Yeah,
all of our coworkers' classes be at this? And I feel like this just bypassed all of that, all that
yeah,
guesswork that we had to do. All we had to do is be like, hey, what weapon would you wield?
yeah.
Yeah, and there were some very interesting choices. Two people said bow and arrows, but one
Hmm.
person was specific with the bow and arrow. Like they said that they didn't like that they would have to go retrieve them all.
Right.
So then I said like, well, you could always just like have like a magic arrow that just returns to your quiver
Yeah.
after it hits the target. And they're like, I love that. That's what I'm gonna go with. And I was like,
Or even
see,
just
oh,
do the magic quiver. You know,
yeah,
you just
yeah, or
never
that
run
too.
out
Yeah,
of
you never
ammo.
run out.
That's
Uh,
cool.
so you do that. Just a couple old school. One of our older coworkers said a broadsword, just
Hmm.
straight up broadsword. Like I was like, okay, that's pretty rad. That's badass. Uh, yeah,
That's so cool, man. Like you really get like into like it's such an icebreaker. You know, like even though we've been
right.
working with all these people for months or years, it's like you really you start to see them for who they are. It's like, oh,
It's like it's the difference between like 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 me pegging like okay yeah you would say bow and arrow, and then my other coworker being like oh yeah I want like a ball and whip chain
hmm,
like
hmm,
Go-Go from Kill Bill. I'm like that
that's cool.
that's that's really cool. That's
Yeah,
surprising, but I also get it. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So one of our coworkers, she couldn't like make up her mind, and she said she's like kind of like a circle sword from whatever novel. So I look it up, and like it's
Hmm.
kind of like a scimitar. I don't know what they're actually called. It's kind of like a scimitar, but I've seen it more like in Egyptian or at least in the movies.
Hmm.
Kind of like I think maybe even the Mummy, like the giant when the statues come to life or whatever, and they have like those swords. It's kind of like a crook.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and she's like, "Oh, that's cool," but I just thought it was a circle. I was like, "A circle? What do you mean?" So the whole time I'm thinking like Xena. So I look up Xena weapons, and sure enough, she has those two blades they're like little discs that she
Yeah.
holds. And a coworker was like, "Yeah, exactly that." She's like, "Plus, Xena's kind of gay, right?" I was like, "Yeah, Xena's super gay,
Super gay.
super gay. I don't know if gay would exist without her. Um,
It would be all the lesser for it.
it'd be something way different." Um, yeah, so just hearing things like that, I'm like, huh. And of course, I went with classic. I'm a sucker for two weapon fighting, so I want two
Hmm.
swords, you know.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was telling Sam about that. Another coworker had the same idea, and we were just talking about how versatile that is because you can
Hmm.
go the Legolas route where it's all about speed and fluidity, or you can go the Spartacus route where it's more about hacking, slashing, and like and that's a very strength based way of fighting,
Hmm.
you know. And then if you watch Black Cells, you have Anne Bonny who her blades, you can debate whether they're short swords or just really huge daggers. But she dual wields, and like she's more of the stabby kind
Yeah.
of rogue, you know. But again, it's dual wield fighting, and like that right there is three different characters, three different styles of how to use the same weapon, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
And I just love that. Oh, and I also I always joke around just because I know it gets a reaction. I have my twin swords are named Kylie and Kendall. So yeah.
That's usually my reaction. It's just okay, all right.
um, But yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
if you're looking for a good icebreaker for your coworkers or any new thing that you've got to go to, just
yeah.
ask them like, hey, if you were in a fantasy world, what kind of weapon would you have?
That should be in your job interview. You know, if you're stuck
Yeah.
in a fantasy world like Game of Thrones, what would your go-to weapon be?
Hmm.
Ooh, a gun.
Right?
Yeah,
Especially in Game of Thrones.
just shoot them all.
Yeah, it's like I have a Gatling gun and a
Yeah,
grenade, so I can just throw it at everybody. Like, stay away from me.
yeah. So
Of the fantasy worlds, that's the one I never want to end up in.
oh, I know. Um, so in D&D, there was this weapon. I don't know ever know if it was made official. I know it was an unearthed arcana like 10 years ago.
Hmm.
But there was like this I want to say it was some kind of like star constellation based warlock that they were trying out.
Hmm.
And thematically it sounds cool. I don't think that the class actually was good. I don't really remember. But
Hmm.
there was a weapon, and I want to say it's something like the star chain or something. And it's literally what it was. It was like a chain of stars on it. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's something really cool. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've also seen that in DC Comics somewhere. Like, I think Wonder Girl or someone, she has like that belt that's just like a chain of stars.
Mm.
I'm like, that's cool. But this
Okay.
one,
Huh.
like you deal radiant damage, you could reach people at a certain distance. I think you could use the stars to like shoot, like kind of like one of them will like fly off and like I don't
Hmm.
know if I remember correctly. Um, but it wasn't just the weapon, it was like that was your pact. So you have
Hmm.
like your fighty wizards or your spellcasting wizards, or I'm sorry, warlocks, or the warlocks with like the familiar, and then you have like the star chain or whatever it was, and
Yeah,
it did different things. I'm like, that's really cool, and I
that's
wish they had
interesting.
gone forward with that.
Yeah.
That seems like something I would really be into. I'm not really into the chain thing, but I like the fact that it almost feels like you're fighting with a constellation, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But recommend it. And guys, let us know hashtag Lost Legacies or just hit us up on Twitter. We'll drop all the socials at the end. But like, I'm curious, like, what's your go-to weapon
Yeah.
in this situation? Now, of course, use your imagination a bit. I'm a big guy, so I think if I use short swords, it would be more Spartacus style. I would have to rely on my strength because there's no way I'm legally seeing my way through a battlefield.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
But I think I also chose the shield because I think like one, like it's a good protection for me, like and I enjoy two weapon fighting too, but I think like just how I picture myself in like this fantasy world, I like definitely want to like protect my party, protect my
yeah.
friends, all that stuff. So like I have the shield and all that. But but our coworker was also thinking like cinematic moments. It's like, oh yeah, like I love it. Like you could use your shield to like boost somebody up, or something like that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or I can give you the Legolas moment and I just throw you my shield. I slide my shield towards you on the ground and you like hop on it and start like hacking slashing through
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Teamwork, combos, all that stuff.
Especially if you get good at it and like
Yeah.
you get a cool shield that'll come back to you.
Oof, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All about that.
And that's cool too because like outside of Vikings, you don't see a lot of axe and shield fighting.
Mm,
You
hmm.
know, it's usually sword and shield, or they'll just do the two axes. So I really like that combo. It's very unique, and I don't really think it's overdone in the like fantasy fiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree.
that's awesome. So today we're here after like a month and a half. We're finally talking about Dark Season 2, Episode 1, Beginnings and Endings. 6 months after the disappearances, the police form a task force. Meanwhile, in 2052, Jonas learns that most of Wyndon perished in an apocalyptic event. All right, Sam, we're in it. We're season two. What are your thoughts?
I am more lost than ever. I am more lost than I was when I started this show.
Dude, well, okay, we finished season one by going
Hmm.
to the future, and we're like, oh boy, how do we start this season?
By
Well,
going to the
even
past.
further. It starts in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was the
Uh,
first thing I said. I was like, this is the furthest back we've ever gone in the
yeah.
show. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And it kind of just doesn't let up. I feel like every scene was some type of like revelation, whether big
Mm-hmm.
or small, you know? And really just kind of like setting the pace and the tone for the season. What and this is I think you said 8 episodes?
Yeah.
That's two less than what we got last time. So I'm
Yeah.
already on edge, you know. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm freaking out. Uh yeah.
Yeah, and like it feels like season one definitely started very slow, taking its pace, easing you into the drama and the mystery. Season two, man, one episode in, and it's just firing, and like there's obviously a lot of things going on that we don't really understand. We're hoping and or assuming that it's gonna pay off at some other point, but
Hmm.
it's like they're taking off the kids' gloves at this point. It's like you're in the middle of this story. We're just throwing you into 1920s and you're going to have to keep up. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, let's
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm.
Oh, man. Um, yeah, so I don't even know where you want to start because, like, it's one of those episodes where it feels like not a lot was happening, but it was just new. You know what I mean? It was a lot of it felt like it was just reacquainting the audience with the characters in the story because it starts 6 months after season one,
Yeah.
which let's get specific. This one even says June or July, whatever,
Hmm.
21st, 6 days before the apocalypse.
Yep.
That's how we're starting the season, Sam.
Yep, sure is.
Ugh.
It's a lot. It's crazy. We also start the season with a death. The death of somebody that we don't
Yeah.
we don't really know in the 1920s, but that was a pretty brutal death.
Yeah,
And
dude.
and I'm surprised we got to see it.
And I'm surprised he died so quick.
Yeah, me
Like,
too.
it was like a one shot. And I was like, oh, damn. He
Yeah,
got killed by a pickaxe.
a pickaxe going.
But
Yeah,
who did he get killed by, Sam?
he got killed by a very young Noah.
Yeah, which is really interesting. And the
Mm-hmm.
guy he was talking to even said, he's like, at some point, I hope you ask Adam. Everyone's talking about Adam, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure we'll talk more about him later. But he's like, you need to ask Adam, why did he take you in and why did he give you the name Noah?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh man, so that wasn't his name or he named him? Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then young Noah is sitting at church with adult Noah. They're straight up talking. And
Mm-hmm.
like, oh man, very similar to Jonas talking to Jonas in season one, where we
Yeah.
we didn't know that was Jonas. You're like,
Yeah.
oh damn,
But it seems like they know each other.
yeah,
Like it seems like young Noah knows that like
yeah. He's
yeah,
much more
this is
informed than Jonas was.
yeah, yeah. Like there's no wool over the eyes at this point, you know.
Yeah,
This episode was very interesting because I feel like season 1 there's a lot of like world building and like tension building. Because it definitely feels more like a mystery that has this sort of science fiction fantasy undercurrent to it.
yeah,
This season, right at the start, it just feels like this is a time travel show. This is sci-fi.
yeah,
The pacing kind of reflects that. We still have this idea of like there's a mystery. But the thing that I noticed most was just how many parallels there are that are rippling throughout time in this situation. Like
Hmm.
like conversations that people are having that echo sort of through time. Like
Yeah.
I think the two Noahs I think is a perfect sort of microcosm of that because it's like, yeah, we get the older and younger Jonases talking to each other. Even last season we had both Helgis
Yeah.
talking to each other, this very, very old man and this sort of like middle-aged man like coming together. Um it was just sort of interesting. There were so many things that I saw that I was like, it's or later on there's a photo setup that sort of mirrors the like collage that Claudia has in her bunker
Mm.
of all these like prominent families and family members in Winden. We get a sort of similar shot of that in a much better looking light. They're all framed, they're all on this like ornate board. But it's just so interesting that it's like, oh, huh, like that, like there's also this thing here too. Like, so it's like there are multiple people who are doing this
Are you
or
talking
like
about
looking,
the one
yeah.
in the bunker, right? The Charlotte's board?
No, well, no, not just oh, well, see, even that, like
Hmm.
Charlotte has that, but Charlotte is doing, like that's a whole like, like she's doing it, it's like a cop thing, like trying to figure out, all this stuff. Like, no, I'm
Hmm.
talking about the one that we see later on with Noah, where Noah's in like this other place.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this like ornate looking wall,
yeah. Hmm.
and there are the photographs of all of the families, or like some of the families, and then they're like family members like in separate photos that are all
Right.
these very beautiful picture frames, all organized neatly and stuff.
Hmm.
It's not as chaotic. It looks purposeful the way all of these things are placed.
Yeah, so there's that one, and then the chaotic one
Claudia's
Claudia's in the future bunker,
in the future bunker. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Charlotte is and her husband Peter are kind of doing not really the same thing, but they're definitely investigating the time travel stuff in the
Hmm.
present day bunker.
Yeah.
And then to an even lesser extent, the new inspector, he has all the pictures on the wall of the investigation, and I'm like, that's kind of ironic, you know. It's all the
Hmm.
missing people, but it's still slowly becoming that same wall, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Even the map. We have like Jonas
oh
has his
yeah,
map,
uh huh,
and then last season we saw the police have a map of the caves that's much less explored. There's not a whole lot going on. And then this season, right out the gate, episode one, Katharina, that's her whole thing.
yeah.
She's
She's making her
exploring
own.
the Winding Caves. She's
Yeah,
making her own map,
it's
drawing them
probably the
out.
same one the cops had because she pulled all that from like Ulrich's old files, and she's
Oh
probably
yeah.
like adding on to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, like that's so cool to see her down there, like doing it on her own. I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
man, wife of a cop. You know what I mean? Like she
Hmm.
she knows what's up. She still knows what to do. Um,
Hmm.
that's crazy. She's lost both her son and husband.
Her baby boy and her husband.
Yeah,
That's wild. That's
and Hannah slept with both of them.
oof. That sounds so weird to say. If this is the first episode you're jumping onto, that sounds really weird, and it paints Hannah in a really weird light.
It
She's all,
should,
I mean, it should,
you
Uh,
know.
oh, geez, yeah, I don't
The
like
baby
that.
boy was older at the time,
Yeah,
but
yeah, and she didn't know, so
yeah, yeah,
Uh, speaking of, let's jump into that. So it looks like Jonas has been missing for 6 months.
yeah.
Hannah is not doing well.
Mm-mm.
She's straight up about to blow her brains out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and yeah, as
There's
the
a
kids say, and as the uh content overlords have dictated, she's about to unalive herself.
yeah.
Uh, and Suddenly somebody walks through the door of her house
Mm-hmm.
and it's freaking older Jonas. It's
Mm-hmm.
future Jonas. And he straight up comes out. It's just like, it's me. It's Jonas. Like, here's all this
Yeah.
stuff to prove that I am who
I
I
was I
am.
was really surprised like how upfront he was about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, gee, we only have 8 episodes this season, so we gotta keep it moving. We gotta
Yeah.
keep up that pace.
I think it's that, and I think it's also the fact that like, hey, the apocalypse is happening in 6 days. Like we gotta, you
I
know,
think also like he failed in his plan. Because all of season one, he was following this plan. He's like, I'm gonna destroy uh what was he calling it? Not the hole, not the black hole, but
mhm.
he was gonna destroy
It's like
whatever,
the portal,
yeah, whatever this portal thing was.
Yeah.
And then he said, he's like, it didn't work. He's like, he
Hmm.
closed the caves, but it's still there. So now it kind of feels like, what's his plan? Does he even have a plan? First thing he does is he goes home. You know,
Yeah.
he reunites with his mom after 33 years.
Man,
Jeez, dude.
wild.
Yeah. That was a great scene because, like you were saying, like he's showing his scars. He knows all the little spots on the floor. You know, that's where Dad spilled the oil. Blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And yeah, like man,
Yeah, and it was such a tearful reunion, that takes place between two characters who have never met each other,
yeah,
until this
essentially,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful moment. Um, it was kind of wild though, because like the last we see of both of them, he's sleeping in his old bed, but
Mhm.
he's shirtless, so he has all the scars all over
Yeah,
his body, and Hannah's just looking at him, and she's like, I don't really know what kind of look Hannah is has at that moment,
yeah,
It's like it's fear, it's I don't know. It's so complex
yeah.
that yeah, I just can't like and to your point where you're saying, like and she slept with like, Yorick and Mads, you're kind of just like or I'm sorry, not Mads, Mikhail. Um you're just sort of like is Hannah also kind of looking at Jonas in a like this
I
older Jonas in a
hadn't thought
way?
of it
I'm
like
like
that.
I don't know, like
Yeah, who
yeah, like
knows?
yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I can't tell with Hannah.
Yeah,
You
she's
know?
such a wild card, man. Like,
Yeah.
and not in the cool way, you know?
Yeah.
Like she's like, I don't know, man. She could do
Yeah.
anything.
Straight up chaotic in just the worst way possible. Um Speaking of chaotic in the worst way possible, the future sucks.
Sure does.
Man,
Post-apocalyptic.
post-apocalyptic, everyone's dead, and the
Hmm.
people who aren't dead, I feel like they wish they were.
They're part of it. Looks like it's Sigmundus, right? They're like maybe a
Hmm.
cult or something.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that now in the future, everyone knows about it. Everyone's talking about it, you know. Whereas before, like it only seems
Hmm.
like who is
Only seems like
Sigmundus?
a handful of people.
Like Noah, maybe? Like
Yeah.
who's actually quoted it? Because we know it says it like on the metal door in the cave,
Hmm.
but I don't like who else has actually.
No, no,
Well,
really, no, nobody else.
yeah, the guy who died in the beginning, he had the tattoo on his chest, the same one that Noah had on his back. You
Hmm.
know, which was I forgot what was it called, Emerald Tablet, I think.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah.
real world thing. So yeah, I guess by extension, like Noah's group has expanded or their influence has in this post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, I guess so.
But was very kind of disturbing was the people they killed. They're
Hmm.
trying to keep them out, so a wall has been built around the plant. Something happens in the nuclear power plant in 6 days,
Hmm.
destroys everything. So now here we are in the 2050s. A wall has been built around it, and they essentially hang two guys for trying to like break in. And they say something to the fact that like you're hiding God and you won't let us see him.
Mm-hmm.
What is in there? And I'm like, oh shit. And Jonas says something similar. He's like, what's in there? What aren't you showing us? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl from the end is there. She was the translator, the one who's like,
Yeah.
welcome to the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she still doesn't have a name. She's just girl from the future in the credits.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Um,
For real?
yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so she's still there. But what's very interesting is who's leading this cult. And honestly, I feel so stupid because and I don't know. I guess I didn't want to like presume. I didn't want to be prejudiced. Like I'm sure there are a lot of people who can be, mute, and deaf. But the leader of this like fanatical cult in the future is both mute and deaf. And so they're signing and they're talking to Jonas. Also, the most threatening, some of the most threatening signing that I've ever seen done,
Oh, dude, yeah.
on TV. Yeah, I'm like, holy crap, this is horrifying. Um, and then just shout out to the editors because her and Jonas finish her conversation and Jonas walks off and she has this like, she's so badass. Like she's like anti Sarah Connor. She's got like a red bandana.
Mhm.
She's got like a scar and a wide eye, and she's got like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big
Like she lost
gun
an eye
and
or something, right?
yeah, or it's like it's like glassy
His
or
glassy
something.
eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's just like there and she like as Jonas is walking away, she's like giving like this really like evil freaking looking smirk. And then smash cut to little tiny innocent Elizabeth.
Hmm.
And both Kat and I were just like, oh shit. Oh,
Yeah.
duh. Oh my God. Like, God, I felt so dumb. I was like,
Dude, the
wow,
first time I saw it, I felt the same way. I'm
man.
like, oh, this is an interesting character. And then
Hmm.
it smash cuts to Elizabeth, and you're like, oh God, she's the
Uh-huh.
only deaf person we've seen on this show. I'm like, is that her?
Uh-huh.
And if you
Uh-huh. I'm
look
like,
age wise, maybe. I'm like,
I
oh my God.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, she's younger than Jonas, but I like honestly, like,
Yeah.
33 years from now, living in the post-apocalypse, like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna look pretty bad.
Yeah, man. That's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wild. You know what that does though is like it really helps build out this sense of dread, you
Hmm.
know? Because it's not only bad enough that we're saying, oh, Wyndon was destroyed, everyone died, but we're also saying Wyndon is destroyed and everyone dies in 6 days because we're seeing both timelines,
Yeah.
you know? And then on top of that, you see like when Jonas goes to visit his father's grave, you also see the grave sites of other characters,
Hmm.
including Martha.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh God. And then on top of that, you add in, oh, but there is a survivor, Elizabeth. So it
Hmm.
just keeps adding to the sense of dread, you know? It's not like just something like, oh yeah, that happened. Now where's the story going? It's like, no, we're gonna continue to see this aftermath. Like what actually happened? And because Martha and Elizabeth are alive and well in the main modern day, it's like,
Hmm.
oh crap. Does that is there that puts a timer on all our characters' lives, especially
Yeah.
Martha, because we know she is buried, you
Hmm.
know? Who knows about everyone else, you know?
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
Elizabeth survives, so it's like, okay, so some people get out somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. But the dread comes in. It's like, but look at what they've turned into.
Yeah, exactly.
It is either leader or uh uh thug in this fanatical
Yeah.
cult, you
Yeah.
know, that seems to follow the same ideas that Noah has, which is interesting
Yeah.
because we start off with young Noah and the guy that he kills talking about paradise,
Yeah.
this idea of paradise. And then in the future we see Elizabeth telling the crowd that paradise is imminent. Like they will be there. Like they're coming. They're about to leave for paradise.
Hmm.
Which is it's a very interesting thing. And then of course, like we obviously know that like Noah, whatever future Noah, evil Noah, whatever, he doesn't. I think it's less that like he believes in the cause. He believes in his cause, what he is doing. He believes in that, and I don't think he believes in higher power. I don't think he believes in
Mm.
heaven and hell, and I think he kind of affirmed that with Helgi last season.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We discussed that. Like he seems like a
mhm.
very non-religious priest.
Yeah,
It's like a cover almost, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean he I don't know if we want to say he's spiritual or non-religious. Like maybe it's just twisted. Like I don't know. It's so weird because because even the way he says you can call me Noah, like he still believes
Hmm.
he's leading these people somewhere, even if he doesn't believe in paradise. You know.
Hmm.
So it's really interesting, and now it's even more interesting because we find out he has someone to answer to, which is this new character in Adam,
Yeah, yeah.
which we get to see full on in this episode. And I'm like, oh boy.
Now, I don't believe in. Okay, roundabout way of coming to this, but I don't like the saying you can't judge a book by its cover. Because I feel like that's the whole point of the cover art. Maybe that was a thing
Yeah.
when cover art wasn't a
Yeah.
thing. And so it's like, I'm just looking at the front of a book and it's like,
Look,
okay, cool. I can't judge this hardcover that is blank. Fine.
I say it all the time. We're booksellers, Sam.
We're
There are
booksellers. Yeah.
so many books in the world, you have to judge it by its cover.
You have to. You just
And we
have to
get
judge.
so many either independently written or like non-publisher books with
Hmm.
terrible covers. So
Terrible.
trust us, you should judge books by their cover.
You should. You absolutely should. And yeah, yeah. And especially in the wake of this like AI art crap,
Oh,
like,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, you have to judge books by their covers exponentially more.
Yeah.
All that to say, I don't like to judge people by the way they look. But if there ever was a dude who looks like a Nazi, it's Adam.
The outfit doesn't help either because it's like all
The outfit's part of it.
yeah,
It's
it's just gray, very
mhm,
uniform, very fascist looking.
very SS officer loungewear,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's like he doesn't have the big symbols and the thunderbolts,
Yeah.
like, but this is the casual attire, you
Yeah.
know, when it's the dinner jacket of SS officers.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's just burnt all the he looks like uh uh he looks like a boiled potato.
He does. He does. He
His
does.
face
Like
looks like a boiled potato.
yeah.
Like this guy has been
I
messed up.
I and I understand like I don't I understand that there's a huge want out there in a certain community that they don't like seeing people with physical what do you call it? Physical
Well, like disfigurement.
yeah, physical
Um,
disfigurement and stuff. They're always portrayed like as villains. Uh
sure.
and I'm like, yeah, that's true. And Dark is guilty of that. Maybe not
Yeah.
even all villains, but I think because it's a time travel show, they do kind of use it to differentiate, you know? Just the fact that like,
Yeah.
okay, sure they're gonna scar future Elizabeth. That really doesn't matter, but like, okay, this is the one death character, so we need to get that across, you
Hmm.
know? And then we have the future girl who has a scar on her face. I'm like, that's an interesting choice. I wonder if we're gonna see what that is, you
You know,
know?
it's interesting because you bring that up, and we also have Helgi, who had a very visible scar
Exactly. Yeah.
across his face, and then throughout the course of the season, we
Mhm.
realize like he's not necessarily a good person.
Yeah.
You know?
And but it's also more than that, it's the way that played out. Cause
True.
It's never really like it's kind of revealed like, oh, this is Helgi. They're the same person. But if you're paying attention, you would have figured it out because of the scar. You know,
Yeah.
you see the old man with the same, it's like, oh. So it is kind of weird how it's used for that, but maybe it's not necessarily just for bad people, but it is just to kind of tell who's who. This is also set in Germany, so it makes sense that the entire cast is all white because this would be a very interesting
Yeah.
story to tell if you had more diversity. You know,
Yeah, very true.
I kind of I kind of feel like it works because the whole cast is white. You know,
Mm,
like it would be weird. Like, wait a minute, we have a black guy here. Does that mean the other black guy is his relative?
yeah.
You know, it's Lando
Yeah.
Calrissian, the father of the only black girl in the saga. You're like, yeah, yeah. You know
Yeah.
what I
No,
mean?
I see what you're saying. I think too the thing that stands out to me the most is future Jonas.
Hmm.
Because when we first saw him, he's got like that gnarly like rope burn scar around his
Yeah.
neck. And then of course, like we see his back and he's got like a bunch more scars. I think I think the reading of that would be much different if it wasn't a white guy,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, but and even then too, since we're talking about it, it's like it's also very interesting how like that's portrayed as well. Like he doesn't have a scar on his face, but it's scars on his body,
Yeah.
and for all intents and purposes, from what we've seen, he's a good person. He's a good guy,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah.
everything he did at the end of season one. But yeah, so it is interesting. I do think it's it's a it's a poor shorthand to sort of telegraph who the villains are.
Right.
Uh
Yeah.
um and like obviously for like however short like the story is blah blah blah, like they can only tell you how evil these people are so quickly and in such a short
Right.
amount of time. So I will fault them that, but I definitely understand what they're going with,
Yeah. Yeah.
when they do that, because again, it's like I said, like trying not to judge people by what they look like.
Hmm.
But when you have a guy who's in this very ornate room talking to Noah casually,
Yeah.
looking like an SS officer, it's like I can only assume that this guy is bad news.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I was gonna say. Like all these other characters, they have a scar or whatever. It's like okay, but this guy straight up looks like a Bond villain.
Yeah.
When you see his scars in addition to his fascist outfit, his fascist loungewear. You know what I mean? So it's like that's definitely a choice. I'm like, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't know. That's just something to bring up.
Yeah.
But speaking of kind of like walking that line too, I don't know if you still have more to say about Adam, but the fact I did enjoy how they featured more of uh I'm assuming the trans character who again is the hooker of the show, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, but that's why I was glad by their inclusion in this one because you do find out like, oh, they're related to the cop. That was a
Mm-hmm.
nice little scene they had, because he leaves her trailer and you're not really sure like what's going on, but then he's like, oh, well, that's interesting. She gives him the keys to that truck,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the truck we knew had the barrels.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like okay, because Jonas got into it last season,
Mm-hmm.
but then when he tells her, he gives her a hug and says, "Call mom again." You're like, oh, one line changes everything. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, man. I'm like, that's cool. So that was a nice little humanizing character moment, for them.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
still don't know what the relationship is with between her and what's her name, the redhead girl,
Oh, I pulled it up. Hang on.
Heather,
I'm looking at the cast list
Sally,
for episode 1.
Bobby Jean,
Francesca.
Francesca. There we go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Magnus's girlfriend and
yeah,
Elizabeth's sister, Charlotte's daughter. Yeah, yeah.
there you go.
God. it's like we have to have the graph, the same like
Dude, I know.
jumbled
I'm gonna
graph in
start
front of
posting it
us.
on my wall
While
just
yeah,
to keep
while we're
track.
talking about this, it's like, wait, hang on, wait, they're connected. Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
that's what they did in Antarctica. I'm pretty sure I
Uh,
told you that.
oh, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
if I hadn't mentioned it on the podcast, I watched this video. I follow this guy who he's like some kind of medical tech and also I don't know scientist, and he works at the South Pole at the station that's almost literally exactly on the South Pole.
Hmm.
And in their movie room, they have all these movies and DVDs and a big TV. They had on an entire wall dedicated to Dark, and it's all the characters with strings tied to them. And he was saying, "We just finished Dark, and it was amazing. This is where all our theories and stuff, and we had to do this, and we kind of left it up because it's kind of a work of art." And I was like, both Dark and that wall is so.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
that wall's still up just because it's so cool, at the South freaking Pole.
Yeah,
As an artist, I would be like, dude, I've done it.
yeah,
I'm successful. That's
yeah.
success to me.
Okay, see, here's the thing. Like, I know, like jumping around topics a lot, but that's what we do best. Uh, I had this conversation. Oh, I had this conversation with Mickey, friend of the show, Mickey, um, the other day. We're talking about how like, yeah, Michael Bay's whole thing, like his whole filmography. I feel like his mindset with everything he does is like it's how is this going to play in middle America? That's who
Yeah.
you're that's who you're pitching to. That's who you're selling this thing on. If it doesn't play like a blockbuster like gangbusters there, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's like, and when you look at that, when you think about that and think about his filmography, you're like, that makes perfect sense. That makes
Hmm.
perfect sense for who this guy is and why he does the projects that he does.
Yeah.
Um you're trying to get to like the simplest common denominator. For me, I think my pitch now is to be like, how's this going to play in the South Pole? How's this going to play in the movie room of those guys who are
For a bunch of scientists
yeah,
who, for X amount of months of the year, live in total darkness,
total
and once a
darkness.
week they get to, or how many days a week they get to sit down and watch a movie. How's this gonna play?
Exactly. Exactly. How's this going to play? I just like, you know what? That's my can.
That you can? Yeah, yeah,
That's my
yeah.
can right there. Just be
The
like,
South
hey,
Pole Film Festival.
South Pole Film Fest. Let's go.
That's the
Let's
goal,
go.
man. Yeah, I want something I'm in to play at the South Pole.
Right?
So,
Oh man. Would you ever
uh,
go?
oh hell yeah! Especially if I
Yeah,
know,
right?
like, if it's just like, I had a friend of mine. Who was it? Yeah, a friend of a friend. She came down to visit a friend, and then like within a week of her leaving, she was like a photographer. She got
Hmm.
invited to go to Antarctica on a
Wow.
quick trip. So like this girl who I met real quick, like 1 week later, she was on a boat out of South America, going through what is it, is it the Singleton route? The Shackleton, right? The route or whatever, Shackleton route, Shackleton expanse. I don't remember.
Sure.
I think, but yeah, I could be totally wrong. It could be something else. It could be Simpson.
That's the that's the North Pole.
Who knows? But it's the route from the furthest tip of South America to Antarctica. Crazy waters.
Mm,
Almost everyone gets sick, but that's where she was going. And I'm like, dude, that's so rad.
that's wild.
And I'm like, I think it comes out one, if you have money, you can go as a tourist. But
Sure.
two, like you can go, like there's so many like expeditions and stuff like that down there. Like I feel like it depends who you know. I
Hmm.
would love to. I don't know how long I would stay.
Yeah.
But especially these videos I watch, like this guy's basically walks through the whole base. It's like, this is where we do this is what we're doing. I'm like, that's so cool. I'm such a fan of, at heart, I'm a cultural anthropologist because I love seeing the way people work and live and how their lives are different from
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
So you can look back at ancient cultures who do that, or you can find some like tribe in the rainforest to do that. Or you can watch like the prison shows. I love watching those prison shows because that's essentially what it is. It's a culture of their own in that building,
Yeah.
how everything works. So to see all these scientists working together and see how things work, and then there's even less of them during the winter when it's all
Hmm.
dark. So it's like, I don't know, between 50 to maybe 75 people.
Hmm.
So, they're saying like, oh, everyone does dishes. It's randomly. We pick another five people. Doesn't matter what your rank or position is. I'm like, that's rad.
Yeah.
So like even amongst the crew down there, you have like a tighter knit crew who's there during the winter.
Yeah.
And then amongst all of them, you have like the volunteer fire department because you're not getting fire trucks down there. So you got to
Yeah.
train these scientists to do it themselves. So it's like this whole different like world down there. And I'm like, and that's just one base. There's several down there,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just so fascinated by that.
That's wild.
Yeah, there was one
That,
of a church. It's like a non-denominational church because you have people from all over. You're
yeah.
gonna get religious scientists down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, dude, that's rad. So long story short, yes, Sam, I would go to the South Pole.
South Pole researchers, if you want to support our
Yeah.
podcast, feel free. Your ad space here. Uh,
I'm gonna find like a good South Pole tag to put in the podcast
yeah.
tags
Yeah.
because Antarctica is the one country we don't get statistics from.
Yeah.
Because or not country but continent, because we get all the continents, and so you could see all the different countries like people are listening to our podcast, but
Hmm.
there's no Antarctica on the map. So I don't know if that
Hmm.
means we just don't have listeners in Antarctica,
Hmm.
or even if we did, we won't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, if you're listening to this show and you're in Antarctica, hit us up on Twitter, #Lost Legacies. Let us know what your favorite weapon would be. What's your go-to weapon in Antarctica?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your go-to? Like, what's the number one villain down there? Like, what if something's gonna kill you? If a creature's gonna kill you in Antarctica, what's the most likely suspect? Like a polar bear?
I'll tell you what it is, Matt.
The thing.
It's fear.
Fear.
That's the number one killer in
what's
Antarctica.
what's what's the fear of tight spaces? Claustrophobia. It
Claustrophobia.
drives us
Yeah.
mad. So and so used all the toilet paper, so we killed him.
Nah, and use them as toilet paper. Oh man.
Man, it's rough down there.
I guess you could say it got dark.
Oh, jeez.
Oh man,
Okay.
they're never gonna let us go down there now. They're like,
No,
no,
I
not those.
know.
Permanently banned from
Toilet paper
Antarctica.
boys are not invited.
Oh man, get a load of the toilet paper boys over here.
Don't say load.
Oh,
Uh, oh man.
all is to say, fantastic episode of Dark.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. There's
I'm
so
sure
many
there's
things we didn't touch
I'm sure there's
on.
something we were forgetting.
I think I'll just end this talk saying like I love this like task force guy that they
mm,
somebody sent down
hmm
who's just more like psychologist philosopher than a cop,
Yeah.
you know?
And he
And it's
doesn't have a
just him.
driver's license.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
he doesn't even
interesting.
have a driver's license,
Yeah.
and it's him and Charlotte. That's the task force
Yeah, pretty much.
finding these missing kids. And I'm like, you know what? That's true to form for the police. You know
Yeah.
that like they would allocate the least amount of resources possible to this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is just gonna be one dude,
Yeah. The
the
last thing.
weirdest guy.
Oh, I know, definitely. The last thing. Well, two things I'll say about the show. One, we had a different narrator this time. It sounded like Noah, because
You
typically,
did?
yeah, we didn't get narration in every episode of season one, but when we did, it was Tannhaus. You didn't
Yeah.
know it at first until you meet Tannhaus. Well, that's another thing we didn't talk about. Tannhaus. He's freaking Charlotte's grandfather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool little reveal. And like they're in, Peter and Elizabeth are in the shop going through all the
Yeah,
old stuff when
yeah.
she finds a picture of Noah and a
Mm-hmm.
group of other shady looking Illuminati type people.
Mm-hmm. In this book
Um,
about like hermetic
yeah,
practices.
yeah.
Yeah, and she finds the
So,
Sigmundus cult or
so that
whatever.
was, yeah, that's what I'm assuming, right? So that was interesting. But yeah, so we like it wasn't until we met Tannhaus we were like, I'm pretty sure that's the narrator. This
Yeah.
episode, the narration was done by, I'm pretty sure that was Noah.
Mm,
Like interesting. And
I
then
didn't notice that. Wow.
later there was another voice, but then it's revealed it's Adam talking to Noah because it's a
Mm,
much deeper, kind of raspier voice,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
older. And I'm like, oh wow. Um, but then the episode ends when Jonas sneaks into the destroyed power plant in the future, and what does he find, Sam? The freaking proto molecule.
Yeah,
That's
essentially.
what I thought. I'm like, dude, this looks straight out of the Expanse. Like,
Yeah. It's like if the proto-molecule ever met like the symbiote, like the
yeah,
venom
right?
symbiote. You know, it's
Yeah,
just all it's this giant big fluid ball of stuff. I don't even know what it is. It's like
yeah,
black ooze and electricity like just mixing together.
yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, it's terrifying. Yeah, I
And then
can't wait
that's
to
where it
find
ends. It's
out.
like, oh,
Yeah,
geez.
can't wait to
So,
find out what that is.
yeah. Okay, so MVPs for this episode.
Oh man.
It's tough,
Uh
dude. Because like we didn't really have a lead for this episode.
yeah. I think I'm gonna give it to the editors. I think
Good call.
with how much story we have to get caught up on in such a short amount of time,
Hmm.
I think it was edited perfectly, you know, kind of
Right
seeing
on.
how, where everybody is and sort of what the journey for everybody is thus far,
Right, right.
and going forward. So, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking going forward, you got any predictions after this episode?
Oh man. Like Marta and Magnus feel like I feel like they're gonna crack the case wide open.
They're
You
starting
know,
their own little investigation, right?
yeah, they're like Nancy Drew and a Hardy Boy. Just,
Yeah.
they're sitting down with all of their dad's police stuff. I feel like they're gonna figure something out. I also kind of think, is Katerina gonna time travel?
She's
I feel
kind
like,
of, they're kind of setting her up to be the one. If anyone does it, it's going to be her because she's exploring
yeah,
the cave, right?
yeah. So I feel like at some point, like she's gotta figure it out.
Yeah, older Jonas did close it though, apparently,
But
but
did he
who,
though?
I don't know.
And is this it? And is that the only way to go?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm wondering. We thought we were talking about that last year or last season because of the dog. Gretchen? Is that the dog's name?
I think so. Yeah,
Because we're like, there's no way Gretchen's opening that steel door.
yeah.
So I'm
There's
like,
no
there
way.
has to be other ways, even if they're tiny dog shaped ways.
And just thinking about it, Helgi found had the little like red string that doesn't lead to the door.
Where does it lead to?
I don't know. We never
Oh,
saw, right? Because that's
it's attached to that thing that's like in the floor,
mhm.
and then where does it go? I don't remember. Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. We have to keep watching.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll find out next week.
everything will be answered next week. Everyone, it's good to be back. It feels good to be watching Dark again. Easily the worst time travel experience. If I'm a time traveler, I don't want to end up in this world
Mm.
because I'll just end up cheating on my wife.
That you don't even have yet.
I know exactly. Maybe
Time
that's what's
cheating.
happened. Like I cheat on her in the future. She's so devastated. She goes back in time and emotionally abuses and cheats on me in the past. So it's this never-ending circle. That's the world of dark.
Matt, I'm gonna message you my therapist's phone number
We live in
Uh,
Texas, Sam. It's either too expensive or they're quacks. Um,
well, best take your chances then.
50-50 shot, right? That's a better
Exactly.
chance than the pizza, the Anthrax pizza.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, everyone, let us know what you thought. Let us know what you think is gonna happen, and let us know your go-to weapon in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Hit us up on Twitter at I'm at _ Matt Jimenez, and Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch on Twitter, on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. And I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Real. That's REEL Texas Weirdo.
It feels good to say it, Sam, but until next time, going
Going
dark.
dark.